It's taco time as tariffs on China are apparently paused again. It's being reported by a Chinese newspaper that tariffs are expected to be paused for another 90 days. This is the second or third extension. And oddly enough, this comes just after the Commerce Secretary went on TV this morning and said, there will be no more pauses in tariffs. They're all going to go into effect when they're supposed to. Honestly, who's talking to these people? Is there coordination with communication? Because this is insane. It really is. Honestly, though, I am not surprised that these tariffs are actually paused once again because of the economic ramifications and likely escalation of the trade war between the two countries. It's clear that they haven't yet come to a full deal. Why? We don't know. We do know that these negotiations are likely to include the possible sale or changes to TikTok. But again, the details on that are not known. We really don't know.
This just in, Donald Trump has announced a 90-day pause on all tariffs implemented for China. Surprise, surprise, Donald Trump does not have a trade deal done with China, and the big threat of tariffs that he implemented on China will once again be delayed 90 days as the American consumer, American families are just held in suspense. We patiently will wait for Donald Trump to make a trade deal, because if he doesn't in the next 90 days, tariffs of 145% will be implemented onto Chinese goods. That's going to make everything drastically more expensive in the United States of America. And Donald Trump and JD Vance and everybody else will tell you it's going to make the country rich. You're going to get a rebate check in the mail. No, you're not getting shit in the mail other than less money in your pocket and more taxes being paid through these tariffs. And by the way, Donald Trump hasn't gotten a trade deal done with China. At least the 90-day pause is good news, because Trump's tariffs aren't going to be in effect for another 90 days.
All right, y'all. So if y'all didn't know, I'm here to tell y'all. Donald Trump, at these last minutes, this is breaking news, y'all. Donald Trump has extended a 90-day extension for those tariffs that he's supposed to be putting on China. Now, mind you, he's supposed to be implementing a tariff on China at 245%. And then China, they gonna come back and retaliate with tariffs of 125 on the United States. They ain't as high as what we trying to do to them. I don't know why. But that's what's gonna happen. And obviously this is gonna cause a major trade war between these two big countries. But they were supposed to come to an agreement, and the deadline was today, I think. They didn't come to an agreement. So now there's been an extension. So I guess that's a good thing, because not coming to an agreement would have been horrible. So what do y'all think? What is they saying? Do y'all think they're going to come to an agreement? Have y'all heard this? Because this is breaking news. It just came through.
And Trump has chickened out of tariffs for a third, fourth, fifth time and extended the China tariffs by another 3 months again. Why are we even shocked? Put out an executive order extending the deadline hours before the previous deadline where the tariffs would come into effect. Deteriorating degenerate has been so busy running around trying to distract people from the Epstein files that he is in, seems to have forgotten that he left the United States on the brink of economic warfare with the rest of the world, pending another extension. At this point, what comes first? The US and China finally working out a tariff deal, or Trump's presidency ending? Joe is not able to admit that he is not able to get this deal done. All of the people he's got working on it weren't appointed for their diplomatic skills, or their negotiating abilities, or their knowledge of commerce and trade. They were appointed because they were the whitest. Another reason why the 90 deals in 90 days just hasn't been done. Extension is what being backed into a corner looks like. The alternative he has to further extensions is crashing the economy. At a time where suspicion of him is at an all-time high and approval of him is at an all-time low. He would not survive such an event. If you were working any other job and you were given a big task to do, and you were given a deadline to do it by, and everyone was expecting you to deliver it, and you were telling everyone you were going to deliver it, and then the night before you came along and said, "I'm really sorry, can I have another 3 months?" Come off it, bro. Follow for more.
Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs again. Here we go. I don't know how many videos I've done that talks about tariffs and also Trump being involved in the center stage of all these suckers. The previous video, I was actually talking about Trump's extension to Mexico, which was also 90 days. And I was telling you August 12th will be the day for us to determine what would have happened to China. And as it seems, August 12th, breaking news was that again, Donald Trump extends Chinese tariffs. Instead of imposing tariffs, he extends the grace period again for 90 more days. And so I think we're talking about November now. Until then, business as usual. China is talking about 125%. US is talking about 245%. Quick math there is, I think, around 140% in favor of the United States. China is going to suffer. I mean, theoretically or on paper, that is what most people think. But in real sense, these guys have nothing to lose. In fact, they have so much to gain in terms of market share. Of course, their main market is the US, but as you can see, as days go by, China is really opening up the world. Like, they have so much good relationship with each and every continent. Let's take, for instance, a gray area like Africa, where people do ignore so much. But if you go to each and every country, you'll see how China has really deep-rooted itself into. You see they are making roads, they are engaging in different projects, bridges. They're doing something in return for their trade, and they're opening up. You'd see many people importing things like clothing, electronics, just anything that you'd imagine being manufactured. They're getting from China, and that's why I think China is unfazed by all this. Could this be related to TikTok in one way or the other, like they have mentioned before? I really do think so. The 75 days remaining, I think, is gonna be used indirectly to pressure China into getting into this deal, because previously Trump has said they don't want TikTok to go dark, and they really want to work with China on this by owning a part of TikTok. They want a USA TikTok where they can control data and know that the US citizens' data is safe. But these tariffs, exactly what does it mean to the US people? That is what we are gonna come back to it today. Hey guys, my name is Danny and I'm gonna be a host for today's show. So in today's video, like I've mentioned before, we're talking about Trump-China tariffs and how it has been extended to 90 days. What are the implications and what does this mean to the common American citizen? Let's continue listening to people's opinion and then we'll be back. Let's go.
President Trump signed this executive order delaying those massive tariffs for another 90 days. And this may be good news for TikTok. Let's talk about what's happening with TikTok and how today's announcement factors into that. The facts are this. We still do not know what is going to happen with TikTok. There is still no official comment on the record from anyone involved, including from the White House or TikTok, about the future of the platform, which definitely feels a little weird because we're only a few weeks away from the deadline. But what we do know for sure is TikTok is part of these negotiations between the US and China. Certainly not the most important part, but TikTok staying alive in the United States is definitely on the table. And as I just mentioned, we also know for sure that unless something happens by September 17th, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act will kick in and TikTok will disappear in the United States. So today's tariff delay and Trump's statement about how good the relationship is with China indicates that, at least for today, Trump is less likely to just say on September 17th, to hell with TikTok, let it die in the US, right? If he's going to be negotiating with China until November, he probably won't want to throw a wrench into those talks by letting TikTok go dark. Now, that does not mean things won't change. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, at least today, and we all know Trump can change his mind, this tariff delay is probably a good sign for TikTok.
Hey guys, Sharon with Black Toast Daily here, and we have a truce. Today, Trump paused the sweeping US-China tariff implementation for another 90 days. This pushes the deadline to November the 9th. So I am no economist. However, this should work in our favor for short-term pricing stability. So, researching being done, obviously, through direct contact with gray market suppliers over in China means that our price lists really should not inflate, at least until the new deadline in November. There's also the potential for order stockpiling. Distributors may increase orders to be able to distribute more before the tariffs again get locked in November. We might see some benefits to this. Also, competitive advantage for our Chinese market. Of course, PEPs are all sourced there, and it still keeps their stability throughout these next 90 days. So do with this information what you will. However, it is really a good thing that the tariffs have not been implemented, at least again until we hit November.
So click on this comment to read the whole thing because it's long. But short answer, yeah, it's only bad if the United States does it. Why? Because I live here. So do you. I couldn't give a if Vietnam decides to put 110% tariff on Irish butter imports. Whatever. Do what you want. I care here what the United States does because it does hurt the economy. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this one more time, okay? American businesses manufacture goods in other countries. We decided to do this 30, 40 years ago now. We stopped on purpose. We stopped making goods in the United States and we make them in other countries. Why? Because cheap access to raw materials and cheap access to labor. That is what capitalism needs to survive. The United States has largely pivoted and become a service economy. We provide the world with technology, okay? We don't provide the world with toilet brushes and toothpaste, okay? Are you following me? Now, here's the thing. It's American businesses who are choosing to manufacture the goods in other countries. Let me say it again. It is American companies who manufacture the goods that you buy and use every single day in other countries. And Donald Trump, by imposing these tariffs, has decided to say you to all of the American businesses who manufacture goods in other countries. And we're only doing so because we have no choice. There is no choice here in the United States. Not anymore. If you want to have a company that is making anything, whether it's clothing, sneakers, soccer balls, socks, what have you, the vast majority of everything that's inside your local Target, Walmart, Home Depot, on and on. All of that stuff, if you are an American company and you want to provide that stuff to American consumers, you have no choice but to manufacture it outside of the United States. Why? Because we don't have the raw materials, the infrastructure, the labor, or the venture capital money to make factories here in the United States. Ain't nobody doing that. I dare you. I dare you to go on Shark Tank and say, I want to make this football. And they're going to be like, what does it do? And you're going to say, nothing. Kids throw it and kids kick it. And they're going to laugh at you. Because they're not going to invest in your football factory. Because we don't want to make $850 footballs here in the United States. Do you understand yet? Other countries are not putting sneakers and speakers in the Scud missiles and shooting them into your local Walmart They're not. They aren't just, putting them on a container ship with good luck, babe, and sending them across the ocean hoping that we let them in the port. We are doing it on purpose. And Donald Trump, with his tariffs, has decided that it will cost us 10, 20, 40, 50, 100% more per item for that privilege, for the privilege of not manufacturing in the United States, not manufacturing something that we can't even make here for a reasonable cost. Are you following me yet? That is what happened. These tariffs are not on China. These tariffs are not on India. They aren't on Vietnam. They aren't on the EU. They aren't on them. They're on us. They're on the imports that American companies import into the United States. Hope this helps.
Honestly, that last speaker, I have never seen a broad insight like that. America is far much gone in terms of manufacturing items or these major items that people really want or people really use that China is making. It's really far gone. I don't think that industries will flourish in there. One, because of lack of investors. Two, is because of the high cost of production. And what do I say about high cost of production? Take it for instance, people in China or these Asian countries that do manufacturing, maybe their workers are paid like, let's say, $10 an hour. And if you go to the United States, let's say someone has a manufacturing factory or industry in there, it's going to be difficult to pay someone $10 an hour to work for like a 10-hour shift. That is so low given that the amount of work they are supposed to do, because that is typically manual labor and it needs a lot of pay. Let's say in US, that would be an equivalent of, let's say, $70 to $100 per hour, and or even more depending on what they're manufacturing. And also the idea of selling this dream to investors or prospective investors would really be cumbersome, because most of them wouldn't want to invest on such industries knowing how expensive it's gonna be to produce that certain item or to manufacture that certain item, and also the taxes that are involved in all this. I think it's far much gonna, not unless the Americans all together just agree that let's sacrifice a few years in order to line up this and go back to manufacturing, which, to be honest, I don't see that happening. Anyways, let's get back to topic. So Trump is using tariffs as a way to leverage trade around the world, especially to its strongholds and also to countries that appear to be so competitive towards it. Let's take for instance China. China, in this whole tariff thing, even if they comply, they will feel like that is a temporary solution which would not necessarily benefit them in any way. Rather, they would just be like, let us do this for the sake of valuable items like, let's say, the rare minerals and these semiconductors that they use in the manufacturing of electronics, and hence the need to kind of comply. And also the social media aspect of TikTok. I know there's something about TikTok that, when you suspect something and you really know something is up but you can't prove, and you're just like, I smell a rat. I really do think TikTok is it called a jargon horse or Trojan horse? Trojan horse. I think TikTok is a Trojan horse, and it's mainly benefiting China based on data. I really do think so, because how do they run the market so well? It's fishy somehow if you think about it. But hey, Trump's move to reshape trade is somehow controversial, and critics say it is erratic and it might cause some sort of market instability or trade instability, even though his long-term game is to make these people actually bow down somehow to the US. How is this going to affect both countries? For USA, I again repeat this old thing. Statisticians are saying like maybe between 60 to 70% of these tariffs are gonna go back to the consumers, where they're gonna pay much more. Even though Trump is saying that he's gonna bring so much money that they are gonna offer cash rebates to people. If you've been following this news for the past few months, you've heard about cash rebates in future just because tariffs is bringing in so much money. Yeah, that is at least his vision for now. For China, maybe them having the opportunity to keep on trading with the USA, which is its biggest market, I think is somehow going to benefit retailers in the US, where they won't be paying so much more because somehow it's like a sort of subsidy. But let's remember, it's gonna be passed down to consumers either way. And even these retailers are consumers of certain products. They are not gonna escape it. I saw in the stock markets companies like Nvidia and AMD, they struck an agreement, and it seems like Trump's pressure has gotten into China somehow, because that agreement they struck is that they are gonna pay like a 15%, which is separate from these other deals where now they're gonna export the chips to the US. And you know, I would say confidently the biggest gaming zone or computer consumption rate, because I mean almost everything is just computerized. Being a first world country, they need that, and hence we cannot deny that their biggest market is there, so they had to do the deal. 15% is better than, you know, having none or not agreeing to anything at all. So I think somehow the pressure is working. But hey, this is a confusing thing. I don't know how it's gonna end. Some people are succumbing, some are trying to be rebellious about it. Let's see if Trump has power against them. But hey, this is the point now where I leave this forum to you guys to express your opinions and thoughts in the comment section down there below. Please don't be shy. Your opinions might give us insight to what we don't know. So far so good, so feel free to interact. Also, don't forget to go and check the original creators. The usernames are embedded in the Stitch videos as always. Go on there, follow, like the videos. For this channel, make sure you smash a huge thumbs up button, consider subscribing, turn on post notifications so that you may not miss my next upload. And with that guys, let me meet you in the next one. Peace out.